So can we all see my assignment, the assignment? Now, what you can see
Yes,
here,
you can see the assignment.
okay. Now, this is what was shared with every one of us that we are expected to work on. And to make it more easier, that is the reason why I've included some narration here. We have A, B, C, D to be A times B, E to be C times D. That is, whatever answer you have here is what you're going to multiply your C with. While your F is your D minus your E. Then I have this, your commission, I have it in three places. I think one person went ahead to reformat this by is putting it in a table. Changing what I've sent to you simply means changing what you are expected to have. And at the end of the day, the result the person is getting is wrong. So now, one of the things which you need to understand as a data person, you must pay attention to detail. Pay attention to details. And when I say pay attention to details, you look at what the information you have, what it contained. And paying attention to details has to do with number one, when you look at this column, when you look at the heading, it said discount percent. And when you see all the what you have here, you have 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, so on and so forth. That is what you're having here. This tells you that this is just ordinary figure, is ordinary figure here, which means anything you are when if you are making use of the information of this column, it means you must consider it as a percentage. And when I say considering it as a percentage, it means that your formula will include 100, which makes it a percentage. Whenever you are using the information in this column, you must consider the 100, which is the symbol for percentage. Now, let's go. This first one, yes, everybody got this right, which is what the total sales. Your total sales is your price times your quantity. It's just for it to be easier. That's the reason why I have to put this symbol. But for accounting person, they will understand that when you are talking about total sales, your total sales is your price times your quantity. And which tells you that for you to for a data analyst, you can find yourself in any area, you can find yourself with any data which you are expected to work on. There are some little things, terms which you need to understand and how that term is being arrived at. So what you're going to do here is, even if I didn't put your D equals to A times B, you should be able to know that your to arrive at your total sales is your quantity times your price. And in that case, you have equals to your quantity times your price, and which give you your answer. And in this total discount, total discount is I've given you that it is your C, which is this times your D. So in this case, and I told you that your discount is in percentage. So what you are expected to do, which every one of us didn't do, is that we failed to uh, include 100. And when I said include 100 is by dividing whatever you've arrived at by 100, which is equals to product of this and this divided by 100. When I was talking about multiplication last week, I told you you can say 1 times 1 Or better still, you can use the word product. Product also stands for multiplication. And what I've done is equals to product. Product of these two. Close your bracket, then divide it by 100. You can see the formula here on the formula bar. For your net sales, I've told you your net sales is your D minus your E, and this is your D minus your E, and which is simply this equals to this minus this, and give you this. Now, under the commission, some of us are typing 15% times this, 10% times this, 5% times this. If I want you to use 15% times, 10% times, 5% times, I wouldn't have put those percentage in this cell. And I believe this is the part which I taught us last week. And that is where your referencing comes in, which has to do with your absolute referencing, relative referencing, or mixed referencing. And as I've told you, whatever information or whatever formula you put in this cell, which I am highlighting, which is M3, this same formula can be copied down and it can be copied to the right without any further challenge. Now, how will you know what your formula should be? For example, this 15% is applicable to everything, which means if I'm copying my formula down, this 15% is expected to be constant. And if I come to this place, this 21%, this 21,996 is applicable to this, is applicable to this, is applicable to this. It means that this 21,000 also needs to be what? To be constant. Now, what am I saying? 15% times everything here, 10% times everything here, 5% times everything here, which means that to all this formula, this column is actually constant to every of the cell that is here. So in that case, what I expected in your formula is to make this your column constant. And when you are copying down, this 15% is applicable to each of the row. This 10% is applicable to each of the row. This 5% is applicable to each of the row. What I expected is for you to make this row constant. And in that regard, what are you expected to do? Equals to 15%. If I'm making the row constant, which means I have to insert a dollar sign. Where will my dollar sign be?
It's going to be in between N and 2.
Okay, and so in that case, this is 8, my M and 2 times my L. And my L here, if I copy the formula to the right, the L is constant to everything, which is my coulomb. So where will my dollar sign be?
In front of N, in front of the M.
In front of the L. So this is it. I've calculated for the first one, which has to do with 15 times 21. Now let me copy my formula down. When I come here, 15 times 12,000, 15 times 4,700, 15 times 30,066. You can see that this particular one, because I've made the row constant, is applicable to everything in this formula. Now I'm going to copy my formula to the right. This the same formula which I've copied here. When you click it, you find out that this 10% is applicable to 21. And when you come here, you find out that this 5% is applicable to your hair. Now, net sales as percentage of total. Net sales as a percentage of total. Where is our net sales? This is our net sales. Where is the total? This is the total here. That's the reason why here I put total, which means you are expected to this row is expected to have a total. So you are expected to have, for each of the column, you are expected to have a total for it. Then your net sales now, your net sales, which is here is 21,996. 259,476.75 is expected to divide 21,996. Is expected to divide this. Is expected to divide 478. It is expected to divide each of the numbers on that column, which means at that point you are expected in your formula to make the 259,479.75 constant. So in that case, you said this is my net sales divided by this, and I make it constant. And when I come here, you can see it gave me 1, which means at the end of the day, what you are expected to get here is what? 100%. Okay, the net of sales. I've told you net of sales as percentage of total. What is the percentage of 21,996 of 259,479? What is the percentage of 12,839 naira point 25 of 259,479? What is the percentage of 4,781 in this? So what you just need to do there, which means that 21,996 over 25,000 or 259,479.75. That is what your total would be. That is when you will know that, okay, what you've done right. Some of us are getting 90%. Some of us are getting series of numbers here, which is nice. Now, I intentionally leave the figures this way it is. We'll go to the next step, which has to do with the formatting before we now go proper to the next, to the function. Then average. The average here is is equals to average. You have average function. What are you looking for the average? You are looking for the average of this. Then this gives you the averages of all the figures. Now, where I'm going is this. What I'm going to talk about before we go to today's section is this. Now, when you look at total sales, the way it was showing, it was not showing as there's no comma. This all figures that are here, all these figures are in amounts. This is in percentage. This is in percentage. So in that case, for it to show properly, you need to format your cell. And when I say formatting your cell, it means you highlight this and come here, come to your number or to your home, from home to your number. Then you come to the name. What are you talking about? We are talking about either currency. Let's use currency. Now, when I choose currency, due to my own Excel, you find out that he has put pounds in front of it. But what I wanted is not pounds. I will just come here and come here to change it, the symbol from none. So with this, I've taken out the pounds which I have there. So you can simply see the figure properly. You can see 21,996, 13,515. And you can see 12,839. You can see all those figures appropriately. Then this column, the last column, which is expected to be in percentage, what you do after highlighting, you can come to this figure, look at the drop down, and select your percentage also. And at the end of the day, what your total should be here is 100%. It's 100%. And again, this is into two decimal places. Probably you don't want it any of it to be in two decimal places. What you just need to do is when you highlight it, you come to this. You can see decrease decimal and you can see increase decimal. You just come to it and reduce your decimal. So you can have 8.58%, 5%, 2%, 12%, 2%, 1%, and the less. So, and when you look at it, the total of it will give you 100%. On as relating to the data you currently have, on the data, this is what we'll be using in looking at all functions that is available. There are some functions that I actually did not include here because this is the data you will be working with, but something which a correction which the quantity there that is having minus 39, can you remove the minus? I actually used the minus to test check something, but what I used to test check is not what I'm actually discussing here with, which I'm going to include here. That will be uh, done later. So now we've done addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. We've done percentages. Now we are going to some technical parts of Excel function. And one of the technical parts of Excel function, you'll find it when you now for easy access to your information. Because when you look at this information, when you scroll to the right, you find out that the information is hidden. And when you scroll down, you find out that the information is hidden. But for everything we would like to do, I want this information to keep showing. In that case, for me to make it to keep showing, we have what we call data or freeze panel, freeze pane. So in that case, freeze pane here is used to reveal the information you want to make constant. That when you go scroll to the right of your Excel sheet or you scroll downward, you want those information to keep showing. For example, if what I want to keep showing is all what I have on this row, this highlighted row, what I will have to do is I want all this to be showing the highlighted row, and I want this column also up to this column to be showing. What I will do is I will come below where I want to reveal. Don't forget row 2 and column J up to column. If I scroll to the right, I want information up to column J to show. If I scroll downward, I want information up to row 2 to show. What I will do, I will come after column J, which I want to show, and my row 2, which I want to reveal. I will click there and I will go to view and come to freeze pane. In my freeze pane, you can see it, freeze top row, which tells you that only the top row will be freeze. So when I go down, I will only see the top row. Are we together? And when I freeze first column, it means the first column only will be freezed. But if I have a specific information to be revealed, like okay, I want up to column 2 or row 2 to show and up to column J to show, and I've come here, what I will click on is freeze panes, which when I click on it, when I go down, you'll find out that up to row 2 was showing. Even when I go to the bottom of the cell, all of my row 2 will be showing. And when I go to the right, even when I go to the end of the sheet, my column J will be showing. But for the purpose of this class, I want information up to my row 10 to show, which means my freeze pane will start from here. Then I go back, unfreeze, and come back and freeze my pane. So when I scroll down, those information will keep showing. And when I go to the right, those information will keep showing. Now, before we go further, okay, now we in this class we are going to talk about logic. When we talk about logic, that is in human life, we do says we do use this word. If I didn't mean I have money, I will have buy Rolls Royce. I will have bought a house. Likewise, in Excel, you can also use such a formula. That is, you are telling me that if this happen, this should be the result. Under the logic, we'll be looking at if statements, at if NA, and or, and or. Then we also have some function which is called test function. Lane, left, right, mid, trim, text, concatenate, and test join. Then under the logic as well, we have what we call sum. We've already known sum. We also know what average is. But you don't know what some ifs, what they are, average ifs, you don't know what they all are, right? Then we have some lookup which we'll be uh looking at, that has to do with your lookup, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. Then we have your index, match, choose, offset. Then we'll be looking at some date functions. Now, I have something here which I call data validation. Data validation here, what is meant by data validation? Data validation is simply you want something in this cell which I've clicked, and what you want in that cell, you don't want anything. It's only that thing you wanted, that you want in that cell. So that is what data validation works for, which means in this cell, if I validated this cell for figures and I decided to write anything there, it will not show if it is not what I validated that cell to give to me. Now your data validation. Now I want to validate this my cell D12. How do you validate? One thing you need to understand is that all the cells you are seeing here are being validated, and they are being validated to show what they are showing, to accept what they are accepting. Now, look at this cell. I can type anything there. I can type anything here. And at the same time, I can type them cent. I can type anything which I like into this cell. But I want to validate this cell. To validate it, what do? You go to your data. When you go to your data, when you come to data tools, then you will see if you are using different version of Excel, the way you see it might differ, but you will see it under data tools. When you click here, you will see data validation. What did I do? The cell I want to validate, you come to data tools, and click on data validation. When I select data validation, a dialog box will come. In this dialog box, look at this. In this place, what did you see? You see any. Any value means you can write anything there. Anything you want to write is what that cell will take. That is the way that cell has been validated. If I scroll down, this is a whole number. When I click whole number, it's telling you data between which number. You've put maximum 1 and 10. Okay. Now, first of all, let me type. What did you see? This value doesn't match the data validation restriction defined for the cell. It doesn't match because what I expect him to be there is not this. Except figure between 1 and 10, whole number between 1 and 10. Understand? Whole number between 1 and 10. But here, I want to write the name of a person, Johnson. And I press enter. Immediately I press enter, a notification come. It said the value does not match the data validation restriction. That is, when you validate that cell, you've restricted to what it can actually take. It cannot take anything aside what you have restricted it to take for the cell. So in that case, it won't go. Now, I said whole number. Let me type a decimal, 1.45. The value does not match the data validation restriction defined for the cell. It doesn't take it. It's a number, but because it's a decimal number. I said between 1 and 10, right? Let me type 20. The value does not match the data validation restriction defined for the cell. You can see it is what you want to be in the cell. That is what will be in the cell. Nothing more will be in the cell. It will not accept anything different from what you want to be in the cell. That is the work of your data validation. So if I validated that cell for percentage, that is only percentage that it can take. It will not take any other thing except percentage. Now, under data validation now, these are what you can see: whole number, decimal, list, date, time, text length. This text length means that what is the length of your text that you want. There are some software, for us that are conversant with software, there are some software that when you are trying to upload, when you type to a certain level, it will not accommodate any letter any longer. It's because he has gotten to the length which it was programmed to be.